Good afternoon. Folks, want to start gathering behind me? That's okay. If you got a poster, come on in behind me. About to get started. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah, we ready to get this going. I can't hear you. We ready to get this going. Come on, man. It ain't even raining out here. One more time. We ready to get this going. How's everybody doing? My name is John McFarland, and I'm a civil rights union leader with Vocal New York. We're here today to demand that the City Council hold a hearing or several hearings to disband the Strategic Response Group, otherwise known as the Jump Out Boys, otherwise known as the law enforcement terrorists that terrorize low and marginalized neighborhoods, otherwise known as the violators of our Fourth Amendment rights on a daily basis. So I say to that, no way, hell no, SRG has got to go. No way, hell no, SRG has got to go. I said no way, hell no, SRG has got to go. No way, hell no, SRG has got to go. All right. I'd like to thank everyone for coming out and showing up today for this rally/protest/demand addressed to the City Council to hold some hearings on the SRG and why we should disband this very, very unsatiable form of law enforcement. I'd like to first call up, y'all have to forgive me, I'd like to first call up Ms. Kimberly Bernard, to the activist and organizer and co-founder of the Black Women's March. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
First of all, I want to thank the organizers of today because this is an extremely important mission. I am an organizer and an activist in the movement for Black Lives here in New York. On the heels of the George Floyd killing, millions of people around the world and tens, maybe hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers poured out into the streets to protest and to demand that Black people in this country be treated as equals. Now, one would think that in a country that calls itself a first world country, in a country that claims to want equality for all people, that we would be met by our government with open arms. But instead, what we were met with was an all-out war. As we demanded that violence against Black people in this country come to an end, what we were met with was even more violence. And so what we are saying here today is that we will not be terrorized or brutalized by a group of people that we pay. We will not continue to pay for, through our tax dollars, our own oppression. And as the people who vote, as the people who pay taxes, we have the right to hire and fire whoever we see fit. And so we're calling for the SRG to be no more. They're redundant, to do the job that they were elected to do and to make the right decisions and to hear the people. We are calling for the SRG to be disbanded immediately. Thank you.
I'd like to thank Kimberly for her words of confidence. I hope the City Council is listening. I want to say that, we're here because the NYPD Strategic Response Group has inflicted violence and trauma on our communities for too long. So it's time for the City Council to take action. I said, hell yeah, hell no, SRG has got to go. Hell yeah, hell no, SRG has got to go. Hell no, SRG has got to go. I want to introduce our next City Council member, Mr. Chi Olsen.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm City Council Member Chi Osei, and I have the great privilege of representing the 36th District, which includes Bed-Stuy and Northern Crown Heights. I want to start off by explaining what happened with this last budget. As many of you may know, there were cuts made to our educational public schools here in New York City, but we saw zero cuts in the NYPD. And not only did we see zero cuts in the NYCPD, but we saw over $1 billion in spending on overtime pay. So when we're talking about our looming recession that appears to come, when we're talking about pegs and cuts that need to happen allegedly in order to propel our city forward, why is the NYPD given another pass, and not only a pass, but an increase in pay with overtime? In addition, I've introduced a bill in the City Council, Intro 277, in partnership with Councilmember Althea Stevens, and this would ban the SRG from breaking up and interfering in protests that happen in New York City. We know a fact here, standing here today, that the SRG is an anti-democratic unit of the NYPD. They violate our First Amendment right to assemble. They violate our First Amendment right to speak up. They violate our First Amendment right to protest. So what we are doing here today is raising the pressure on our colleagues within the council on making sure that bills like Intro 277 are brought to a hearing, are heard in the council, and passed so that we can ban this anti-democratic and borderline fascist unit within the NYPD on interfering on the people of New York City. So call on your local elected officials. We have 20 co-sponsors and we need a simple majority of 26. So call on your council members to have them get on that bill and do right by the people of New York. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't want my council members out here just performing lip service. I need you guys to get back in that office and push your comrades to get this thing done. I also want to tell you that we're all here because too many New Yorkers, including many of the people standing out here right now, have experienced the violence of the SRG. At 1:30 today, the City Council is going to hold hearings, and I hope that there's going to be a lot said about the trauma inflicted by this group of law enforcement individuals. I'd like to call up a good friend of mine and the senior organizer at the New York Civil Liberties Union, Miss Isabel Leyva.
I want to thank you all for being here today. My name is Isabel Leyva. I'm an organizer with the New York Civil Liberties Union, and I also run our protest monitoring program, where we send volunteers across the city to document police conduct of protests. For the last almost 3 years, I have seen and experienced the SRG's violence firsthand. In my work, I have had dozens of conversations with community members, leaders, and activists, and what has been clear is that the SRG does not keep us safe. For activists who engage in protests and for the monitors who monitor those protests, the SRG being on the ground is a red flag. It is a sign of danger. It means that a nonviolent protest can turn to violence and chaos at the drop of a hat. Over and over again, the SRG inflicts violence and militarized tactics on our community members. This unit is trained to do this. That's the most important part of what we're here to say today. This is not a coincidence. This is not a case of a few bad apples. This unit is trained to inflict violence on people. And and they're trained to specifically target racial justice protesters. I'm here today with all of you to say enough. Enough violence, enough impunity, enough of pouring tens of millions of dollars of funds into a unit whose only unique function is to brutalize New Yorkers. New Yorkers deserve resources. New Yorkers deserve their First Amendment rights to be protected, not met with state-sanctioned violence. City Council must take action to hold the SRG accountable for its abuse. Chair Camilla Hanks must call for an oversight committee hearing and give council members the opportunity to hear about the trauma that the SRG has inflicted on their constituents. And the SRG must be disbanded. This violent and overfunded unit has no place in our communities or at our protests. New Yorkers deserve better. The City Council has the power to create the city that we want to live in, a city free from police violence. But that requires action, and that's what we're here today to demand. Camilla Hanks, City Council, act. Hold a hearing, disband the SRG, and reinvest their funds in our community.
To the Committee on Public Safety in the City Council, it is time to act. We're tired of getting bloodied, beaten up, and we're tired of getting killed. Antonio Williams is dead today because they jumped out on him in the Bronx, ran him down, and shot him. That ain't right. I want to introduce our next council member, Miss Shahana Hanif. Not here. That's not good. Moving right along, I'd like to introduce my friend from the Legal Aid Society, Genvine Wong.
Hey, how are you? Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Genvine Wong. I am a public defender and staff attorney with the Cop Accountability Project at the Legal Aid Society. Our clients and our staff, they all know too well the kind of brutality that the SRG inflicts on civilians and everyday New Yorkers. The Strategic Response Unit is yet another unit of NYPD that demands massive resources without check or limitation. And when we look at the Legal Aid Society's law enforcement lookup tool, SRG officers are named in civil lawsuits detailing horrific actions and have collectively amassed thousands of CCRB complaints against them. Some of the substantiated complaints detail narratives that reinforce and confirm NYPD's lack of training and inability to discipline these officers. So I just want to point out a few of those examples that I just looked up today. One current SRG officer, Officer Salas Martinez, had a substantiated complaint in 2018 for physically pushing and shoving a woman outside, right out of the 46th Precinct Station House, and refused to provide his name and shield. Following this incident, following the substantiation of that, he has still remained an officer within SRG. And he has not been disciplined enough so that he will not repeat these actions. Another SRG officer, Larios, fabricated probable cause to unlawfully stop, search, and arrest an individual in 2018 and remains an officer with SRG today. One SRG supervisor, Lieutenant Grant of SRG 4 in the Bronx, has 32 complaints against him, spanning decades across 10 different incidents. And at least 14 different supervisors, meaning sergeants, lieutenants, and captains, have multiple misconduct allegations in their histories. And these are just a few examples of the kinds of misconduct histories that NYPD's SRG officers bring to a unit that is activated to police First Amendment activity. These officers, they've already shown that they have a disregard for being held accountable and that they are free to fabricate probable cause to violate civilians' constitutional rights. And we all saw in 2020 out of these protests that officers were obscuring their badges so that civilians and investigators would face obstacles and challenges in holding them accountable. This kind of occupation and violence has no place in our communities. NYPD's empty promises in 2015 that SRG would not be involved in handling protests or demonstrations have been long forgotten. And instead, city leadership continues to allow NYPD brass to unleash a violent, militarized unit with a dismal history of accountability onto our communities exercising their First Amendment rights. SRG should not exist. NYPD is not only already the largest occupying police force in the U.S., but its size rivals that of many small nations, and its bloated budget merely continues to grow unchecked and without accountability. further perpetuating a culture of impunity amongst its officers, but especially among the SRG. So for far too long, advocates and New Yorkers have complained about this unit and its rampant abuse of authority. NYPD once hailed SRG as an innovation, but time and time again we have seen that the only thing SRG is able to innovate in is new ways to inflict violence against civilians and New Yorkers. Our communities cannot stand for this. Our clients cannot stand for this. City Hall and the City Council must listen to the demands to disband SRG. Thank you.
Thank you, Genevieve Wong. I say tick tock, SRG has got to stop. Tick tock, SRG has got to stop. I said tick tock, SRG has got to stop.
Tick tock, SRG has got to stop.
Thank you. Next up, I'm going to be introducing representatives of the New York City for abortion rights.
Can y'all hear me? Yes? All right, good afternoon. We're here today as members of NYC for abortion rights. You may be wondering, what does the SRG have to do with abortion in New York City? Well, it turns out quite a bit. Every month, NYC for abortion rights organizes a clinic defense to delay anti-abortion people from harassing patients seeking reproductive care. The anti-abortion group we oppose during these clinic defenses, Witness for Life, gets an NYPD escort for their procession from the Basilica of Old St. Pat's to the Planned Parenthood clinic in Soho. While our side is there to protect patients and providers, the NYPD paves the way for clinic harassers by shoving, elbowing, and threatening us. The SRG has been present at all of our clinic defenses since May 2022. Upon arriving at our meeting point, our clinic defenders are greeted by dozens of SRG officers and vans. At our June, July, and August clinic defenses this year, the SRG played their long-range acoustic device, the LRAD, claiming clinic defenders were either obstructing pedestrian traffic or vehicular traffic. In June 2022, over a dozen SRG officers sporting flex cuffs formed a intimidating line outside the clinic for no apparent reason, directly undermining our goal of keeping clinic access safe and clear for patients. In August of 2021, they targeted two longtime clinic defenders and arrested them. In August of this year, they violently arrested a photographer post-clinic defense and arrested 4 more defenders demanding the release of our friend. The SRG always brings TARU, the NYPD surveillance unit, out with them. TARU indiscriminately films the faces of our clinic defenders while seemingly paying no attention to the horde of anti-aborts on their way to harass patients. At best, the SRG's presence works to intimidate clinic defenders and patients. At worst, the SRG physically harms and arrests us. We want to be very clear that the SRG presence and brutality at our clinic defense is only a mere taste of what the unit is capable of. One need look no further than the SRG's behavior at Black Lives Matter protests to see the full extent of their violence and repression. We stand here on behalf of NYC for abortion rights to demand the SRG be disbanded, not partially defunded, not rebranded. We will not settle for anything less than the SRG's full disbandment. Thank you.
So as told by representatives of New York City for abortion rights, the SRG does more than just harass black and brown folks in marginalized neighborhoods. They do more than just infiltrate NYCLU and come out and violate our Fourth Amendment rights. A lot of reasons why we need to get rid of them. Next, I'm going to introduce Mr. Imani Henry from Equality for Flatbush. I'm sorry.
Hi fam, my name is Imani Henry. I am with Equality for Flatbush. We are a Black Lives Matter group that organizes against gentrification and police violence. The reason that we coupled police violence and gentrification is because in 2012 there was so much data going around across the country, especially here in New York, about rapidly gentrifying neighborhoods, feeling the sting and the increase of the police occupation that we've known for years, more police shootings, more police murders, etc. As of 2012, in the neighborhoods of Crown Heights, Flatbush, and East Flatbush, there have been 9 high-profile police murders and shootings. What we want to talk about, of course, as a Black Lives Matter group, is all the violence that has been done to us by the NYPD. We also want to talk about the terrorism, and we see the SRG as a terrorist organization, not an anti-terrorist organization, a terrorist organization. We want to talk about what's going on in our communities. Just like NYCHA, in 2015, 2016, Equality for Flatbush documented that the SRG was doing traffic stops in Flatbush and East Flatbush. This is a mostly migrant of color, particularly Caribbean neighborhood, and here are what is supposedly the anti-terrorist group doing traffic stops in our community, frightening, terrorizing migrant folks. We know there's been an uptick in all of our neighborhoods in regard to ICE. That myth that ICE and the police do not work hand in hand needs to go. The reality is, this is why in gentrifying communities, we're seeing more SRG presence. So for instance, during what we believe was one of the best global uprising against police, murder, and racism in 2020, we encountered the SRG responding to fireworks and noise complaints in a neighborhood in Flatbush that is experiencing high rates of high-rise luxury towers being built in the neighborhood for folks that have been living for how many years, how many decades, paying less than $1,000 for a 2 to 3 bedroom apartment. Here we're now facing luxury towers where it's now $2,500 for just a 2-bedroom apartment. So in July of 2020, the SRG came in full riot gear and did a SWAT action, pulling people out of their homes, throwing people down on the concrete. People were handcuffed behind their hands and then thrown down on gurneys.
That ain't right.
That ain't right. This is how, it's unprecedented. This is how the New York Police Department, the SRG, responded to, again, fireworks and noise complaints in the summertime of New York City. And lastly, I just want to talk again in the spirit of Black Lives. We have had a murder, it's like almost yearly, by the 71st Precinct. This is a notorious precinct. This is a precinct that murdered Saeed Vassell. This is a precinct that ran down Ronald Smith as he was just standing on the sidewalk, knocked him down into the street. In December of 2021, the 71st Precinct murdered Adiz Pierre, a Haitian brother who, similar to Saeed, just happened, like so many of us, to have a mental health condition. With lots of black and brown people, of course, he lunged forward with a knife. It was suicide by cop. All the lies that they tell to justify executing black and brown people. When the community of just a few protesters, maybe 20 people at the most, went to the 71st Precinct, the videos are outrageous. We're talking over 70 SRG officers, full riot gear for 20 people, chasing them down the street, beating folks, arresting folks. It is ridiculous. This is what's happening in Crown Heights. This is what's happening in Flatbush. This is what's happening in East Flatbush. I'm here in complete solidarity with everyone that is fighting the SRG. We say that New Yorkers actually need housing, affordable housing, and no more money going to the police. Disband the SRG. We have always said, if you want to see an end to all the Black Lives Matter protests, then stop killing black people. And there will be no more protests. Stop killing black people. Stop killing brown people. Leave our communities alone. We need housing, not the SRG. Thank you.
Imani got the bullhorn melting in my hand. Can't follow that, so I won't. Without further ado, I'm going to call up a council member who knows about her craft. And how do I know that? Several weeks ago, she was hanging out with Vocal New York at our Defund table. So I'd like to introduce Council Member Alexis Avalon.
Y'all hear me? Okay. How you doing, everybody? What's going on here? Are we asleep? What's happening? How are you doing? Listen. So my name is Alexa Viles. I'm a council member in District 38, which is Sunset Park, Red Hook. Red Hook's in the house. So listen, I'm standing here obviously in solidarity to ask our council members to provide a hearing and to make sure that we disband this unit. Now, the definition of insanity, which you all know, is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different outcome. Our city and our state and our federal government continues to spend money and militarizing and oppressing communities of color all throughout this country. And yet, we expect that there is going to be a different outcome. This is another example of a technique, of a policy, of a group that does not function. It does not produce safety. SRG has never produced safety. Have you seen any evidence of that? And yet our taxpayer dollars get poured in with no avail, right? We know what works. We want our taxpayer dollars to fully fund public education. We want our taxpayer dollars to fully provide health care for all New Yorkers, no matter where you live, no matter where you come from, no matter what language you speak. We want our taxpayer dollars to ensure that we have dignified housing, right? That we are combating poverty and the cycles of capitalism that make sure that our people remain oppressed. So this is just another example of shit that doesn't work, that we are tired of, that we are continuously losing our people to. So we ask our city council, we demand the city council have a hearing on this. Let's get it done. There's no space in a civilized society for another militarized unit that does nothing but oppress people and call it safety. Safety for whom?
That's right.
It certainly ain't for us. So thank you. Everybody, please let your people know. Call your council members. Demand a hearing. Demand to hear the facts. Because NYPD will never produce facts. NYPD will never produce evidence. What they'll do is they'll gaslight you. They'll gaslight you about the latest crime and try to justify their existence. They have the largest budget that they have ever had with very little accountability. And yet, here we are. They cannot produce any evidence about what they say they provide to New York City residents. Let's disband SRG and let's get it done. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alexa. See you at our next defense here. So that concludes our scheduled list of speakers. I'm going to ask right now if anybody here within the sound of my voice would like to get up and say a few words about disbanding the SRG. I got the bullhorn here for you now.
I'll say something. Hi, a lot of y'all know me. My name's Pines. Can I put this down? I think a few days ago, a bunch of people were at the 32nd precinct because they've been the 1-year anniversary of the murder of Antonio Kasim Armstrong. And a cop had pushed his little sister down to the ground. So people had mobilized a few days ago, if I'm correct. And it was like to get to file a complaint on the officer who pushed his little sister to the ground. And it had to be 5 people and like 5 kids, right? And they had called SRG on us. And it was like 5, they had like 3 cars of SRG. And then they had 5 people with zip ties behind us. For 5 people, like 5 kids. SRG to me is worse than a terrorist organization. Fuck that. Like they have beat our asses so many motherfucking times in 2 years. Like I've lost count at this point. Like they consistently harass, assault, beat. Like anything you could say they equate to fuck up, they do. And they are here to solely protect property. They don't like people have walked in the streets, not done shit, and they consistently, they always escalate. They always consistently escalate. They called SRG on us a few days ago and nothing was happening. Like if anything, we had to de-escalate the march because there was an agitator and cops weren't going to do anything, and they called SRG on a bunch of people and fucking kids. We're here, like I'm not just here to disband the SRG. Until all police are abolished, we will keep getting fucked up. They will just rebrand it as a different fucking thing. Like, cops' purpose is to abuse and assault and protect property. They are henchmen. They have no purpose. And until we are able to protect ourselves and care for each other, this will continue happening. It'll just be different forms of SRG, different forms of things. It's not enough to stop one branch. You have to stop all of it. And yeah, I guess that's my thing.
All right, bro. That's my brother Pond. Hey, man, out here, we let everybody tell it the way they want to, you know? No trigger warnings. This is all live. I want to introduce, and it's my fault because they were on the schedule list, representatives of Washington Square Park Mutual Aid.
Let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go.
How you doing? Yeah, I'm with Washington Square Park Mutual Aid, but I'm here to speak on my experiences with the sweep defense community and how SRG treats homeless people with violence. You know? Violence. It's violence when people ask, what does a strategic response in SRG refer to? The answer is violence. Because violence is the response of the ruling class when we ask for the things we need, and they pay SRG tens of millions of dollars to deliver that response. When we ask for justice, when we ask for tolerance, when we ask for help, when we ask for housing as a human right, SRG responds with violence. That's their answer. That's why this past spring, SRG was deployed a half dozen times to enforce sweeps on homeless encampments. Eric Adams lives in the pocket of the real estate industry. So of course he unleashed his most brutal tactical unit on an encampment that refused to be forced into shelters and were demanding access to vacant apartments as real housing for all. On April 6, SRG descended on the encampment known as Anarchy Row to destroy 4 tents housing 5 people along 15 feet of sidewalk. It was an invasion force. They locked down the whole neighborhood. The press was removed, so the violence of SRG would not be witnessed. Several activists stood by the last tent still watching over an unhoused comrade who remained inside it. An SRG commander told us we were all about to be arrested. If we turned around with our hands behind our backs, they would use plastic zip ties to more comfortably restrain us. But if we refused to comply, we would be forcefully shackled with iron handcuffs. He said it would hurt. This is a police official using the threat of torture to suppress not just our right to protest, but also to simply make sure they do their job right. He wasn't lying. Those who complied got zip-tied and calmly led away. I chose to
Disband the police. I just got punched in the face. Protesters. I got punched in the face.
So why don't you push him back? Why don't you push him back?
I did. He's got a knife.
You guys are fucking crazy. Defend yourself. I defend myself.
Refund the police.
Nice going.
SRG out. SRG out. SRG out. SRG out. SRG out. SRG out.
So this guy's talking about he needs police because someone swung on him. But meanwhile, he said he swung back. I mean, we defend ourselves. We defend each other. We don't need police for that.
You also don't need a terrorist group to attack a houseless person. Like even if he had been assaulted by multiple, like you could have just gotten community as opposed to a terrorist organization attack and assault and criminalize a fucking houseless person.
There we go.
Absolutely. So SRG, this homeless man who was in his tent, 5 of them piled on him, 200-pound men. I don't know how he didn't suffocate. They cut the tent out from him. They had a blade, they cut the tent out off him. Then they pulled him out, dragged him across the concrete while he was crying and screaming in pain. The SRG raids on Anarchy Row made it crystal clear how police will brutalize our most marginalized and powerless to protect and serve the rich and powerful. It is well documented the SRG routinely turns down emergency calls because they are too busy stalking peaceful protests. But the notion that SRG is a force for public safety was firmly disproven on April 13th, when this unit that is equipped with M4 rifles, because they're supposedly a counterterrorism unit, was not deployed to apprehend an actual terrorist, tried to turn himself in because they prioritized an encampment sweep. The mass shooter sat in a nearby McDonald's just 5 blocks away for hours, waiting to be picked up. The whole while SRG was busy threatening homeless people with arrests. Police as public safety is such a lie. We keep us safe has always been our truth.
That's right.
That's why I'm here in solidarity with all my community members who have been brutalized by SRG. SRG must be held and accountable and abolished.
That's right.
I just want to say though that while we hope the city council takes action, it will be a mistake to only rely on them.
That's right.
They have failed us so many times before. We have to build our own power. We have to fortify our own communities. So please, please, join mutual aid groups, join community defense networks, find each other, build together. We keep us safe is not something we say, it's something you go outside and do.
That's right.
Thank you.
That's right.
Powerful, powerful. Give it up. Powerful, powerful words, my friend. Thank you so much. And next I'm going to have Caitlin with the gym come up and say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you. My name's Caitlin. I'm with a group called The Gym. I want to stand with everyone ever, but especially here today, saying that this shit is not an accident. It would be a mistake to overlook that the SRG is designated as a counterterrorism unit by its own city. That is what SRG is doing. It goes out every day to counter the terror that this city feels for its own people, for any time their voices are raised, and for any time they are experiencing joy together that they cannot make money off of. The SRG is deployed exclusively to repress free speech, to break up any place, group, or anything where people are coming together outside of something that they can make money off of. They are deployed to protect the city's assets, which the city has made clear time and again are not its people. The city is controlled by developer lobbies and by the restaurant lobby.
That's right.
The city considers every scrap of sidewalk, every scrap of anything in the city to be its own property. Its basic economy is most of its citizens not having access to a bathroom. The SRG is deployed exclusively and paid $90 million a year to be a private bully security guard for this fucking city's ruling class.
Right,
and that means money. I've seen it happen time and again. The place where I live, which is a community center, was brutally fucking attacked by SRG to the point that it's now part of an SRG sound walk. You can come and hear a piece about it. There were city council members there. There were politicians there. Politicians that day called for an investigation. Since then, I've seen them at homeless sweeps, at defenses of hotels, when we were trying to get the cops for once to arrest the people violating the city cop orders who were employees of the city. It's just a fact. They are a terrorist organization. They are paid to make you terrified, to stand up with and for your communities.
That's right. That's right.
I love you all. Thank you very much for being here. Disband the SRG and do the city council thing that they're asking for. Not asking for, demanding.
That's right.
Caitlin from the gym, thank you so much for those words. I'm going to introduce next up, and we got just a couple more speakers left, so bear with me. Micah.
Hello, my name is Micah from the Crown Heights Care Collective and a student of abolition. I just think it's really important, especially if there are any journalists left here covering any coverage at all, that the actual terror that the SRG has inflicted upon us needs to be shared. So don't just post a photo of the politicians that came here and are going to continue to probably not do nearly enough for us, but share stories like this. I stood on the bridge and had to walk backwards for 3 hours after I watched the SRG strip one of my comrades naked, bare, nothing, no underwear, nothing, and make them stand there for half an hour in front of 300 people and 100 SRGs. Like, it's terror. It's actual terror. And there's nothing I can do about it. There's nothing like that I can do to change these things that have just happened. But we can disband the SRG. It was only formed in 2015. Anything that has been formed can be disbanded. It is literally just bullies with fucking militarized equipment. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. I watched them shut the bridge down on both sides and clear the pedestrian walkway so that they could do that to us. I watched them push a girl to the ground, spray her in the eyes with pepper spray, and then kick her in the ribs. This is not serving and protecting. This is terrorizing. It's only a matter of time before these people murder. We need to fight for the living. There are people alive here. There are black and brown people who are alive. And the longer that we have these terrorist organizations like the SRG allowed behind the badge and a gun and the immunity of being a part of the largest gang in the United States, the NYPD, as long as we continue to allow this to happen, there will be nothing but more and more hashtags. I don't want to say another name. Thank you.
I say hell yeah, hell no, SRG has got to go.
Hell yeah, hell no, SRG has got to
Say
go.
what? Hell yeah, hell no, SRG has got to go.
Hell yeah, hell no, SRG has got to go.
Bringing up my brother from the Red Hook Initiative, Mr. Obi.
What up, what up? Can we give a round of applause to my man right here for holding it down here today? I want to give a shout out to NYCLU for all the work you're doing to organize this campaign. I'll be brief. I'm not the most eloquent speaker, so I do apologize. But we know what the SRG groups are. It's another form of broken windows policing. It's policing our black and brown communities, our underfunded communities, teaching a generation of young people that they are the problem. I want to hit on something that Micah just said. The SRG groups were founded in 2014-2015. You know what was ruled unconstitutional in 2013? Stop and frisk. This is just an extension of heavy policing and justifying new tactics to criminalize our communities. Right. Councilmember Avila has talked about the largest budget in NYPD history, $11.2 billion. The NYPD's budget went up, and every other major department's budgets went down. DOE lost hundreds of millions of dollars. 3,000 teachers are going to be let go. Department of Mental Health Services got no additional services. No one makes communities safer? Education. No one makes communities safer? Housing. No one makes communities safer? Food. No one makes communities safer? Employment opportunities. I work with young people every single day. Young people who have been told their whole lives in Red Hook that they're not shit. Red Hook, for those of y'all who have never been there, is the largest of all the NYCHA houses. We have about 10,000 people within those houses. It's also one of the most diverse. A lot of these young people are in and out of getting minor offenses for things like hopping turnstiles, being loitering. We're still having loitering crimes in 2022. What does that even mean? And then you're supposed to go out and be there told all the time, go be functioning members of society. Why aren't you achieving what people on Park Avenue and these other areas are achieving? Well, it's because they've never known safety. They've never been given the tools for safety. And these two things can't continue to exist. We can't keep giving money to the NYPD and taking away resources from our communities and expecting things to change. So believe in our young people. Like all you organizers here, I love everyone who's here. I don't know y'all, but I love you guys. Because you guys believe in our communities. And people can come in and they can come and be loud and they can be brash, but our love for our communities is so much stronger than their hate. So there you go.
I call him Obi. One more time real quick. I have to close out. Is there anybody that wants to say come real quick?
I'll do it.
I got time for one more person.
say something quickly.
Step up.
All right.
Tell me your name.
All right. My name's Devin Krishnaswamy, and I'll keep this brief because, you know, there's not much else to say. I have participated in activism. I am an activist, and I just will say that from what I've seen, the SRG can be very brutal to protesters, not just violent, but very peaceful. I've seen protests where almost the SRG outnumbers the amount of protesters that are in the streets or wherever it occurs, and it is a very serious problem, and that's why I just want to say I support the issue. Thank you.
I'd like to thank everyone for stepping up and my vocal New York comrade, Roger.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Roger from Vocal New York. I just want to say, as somebody who's been formerly incarcerated, I understand how the cops work, and this strategic response group, they are nothing but abusive individuals who love to abuse, and especially blacks and brown communities. But they also would abuse anyone, no matter what color you are. So I hope that the city council hears us today and actually disband this. This is no different from gang members. You know what I'm saying? Like when you have gang members from different groups, this is no different than them. So this is a gang that goes around. They have permission to have a license to carry a gun. They have a badge, and they do a whole lot of bad things to the community, and that is not right. Like their job is to protect and serve and to make sure that nobody get hurt. Their job is not to terrorize communities. So we must end the practice of all forms of oppression in New York State and hopefully nationwide. But it starts here, and it starts with this city council. So I just want to tell them again, ban the strategic response group. Let me hear everybody say it. Ban the strategic response group. Thank you.
And I'm going to close out right there with my friend and comrade Roger Clark from Vocal New York. I just want to thank everybody for being here. Thank you to all of our speakers and to the council members who joined us today. We're gonna keep showing up, right, till this unit is disbanded, right? Because if we don't disband this unit, black people and brown people are gonna still end up dead in the street. I just want to pass it off to my brother Michael. He's gonna say a couple of words about some actions that are coming up. Thank you.
Mic check. Hi everyone, my name is Michael Janice. I'm a composer. I am a member of Musicians United NYC. I have seen the SRG break bones, as many of us can attest. I've seen them line their pockets with overtime pay like they're in a fucking video game. I have recently composed a sound walk for the New York Civil Liberties Union about the SRG. It uses music, testimony, and audio footage from 7 different protests, even though there are hundreds, where the SRG brutalized us. These protest locations are Union Square, United Nations, Barclays Center, City Hall, where we are right now, Brooklyn Housing Court, Washington Square Park, and a mutual aid site that Caitlin talked about known as the Gym in Bushwick, Brooklyn. The public can scan QR codes at these locations and listen to the sound walk on site and easily contact those in power to help demand the SRG be dismantled. You can find the sound walk website at our bit.ly link, bit.ly/disband-SRG. In a few minutes, we're gathering over on the side for an in-person version of the sound walk, starting here at City Hall, and we're going to end one train stop north at Union Square. This is such a powerful piece to experience at the locations where this shit took place. So we are so excited to put this on. And lastly, I'm going to share a statement about listening to the sound walk with care because it gets it straight. This music concerns numerous anti-black, ableist, racist, misogynistic, and transphobic instances of brutality from the New York City Police Department. These examples of violence by their very nature appear at protests for racial equity, a free Palestine, police and prison abolition, fair housing, and universal access to fundamental human resources. These events are musically recounted to shine a spotlight on the systematic violence that is somehow always both in plain sight and entirely shadowed out. For the circles of police who would wish this soundwalk does not exist, their concealing of pinned down protester after protester, the insurmountability of this violence relies on what cannot be filmed. Their wish that the systemic issue of police brutality be mistaken as isolated incident after isolated incident, with its impact fading from memory as time passes, is exactly why engaging with this campaign and the soundwalk is so urgent. These imperfect artistic representations are guided by a radical commitment to winning the world we need, one that ceases to reproduce these violences. Another way we might listen with care is by eradicating the conditions which bring this violence into the world. Each soundwalk page closes with auto-populating emails, tweets, and more that directly address people who have long had the power to bring an end to this specific violence. Please join the chorus of voices who have given the necessary time and attention to this work by utilizing structures such as the soundwalk to further eradicate the conditions of police violence that persistently envelop. Today, as folks canvass the City Hall area, putting up QR codes, we'll be listening to the first half of the soundwalk, and then we'll take a 4-5 train up one stop and do the same with the second half at Union Square. If you have an hour or so to spend with us, even a half hour, the more hands on deck, the merrier. So please gather off to the side here, and we'll kick things off shortly. There's also a banner, I believe, where we can write a message to Chair Hanks about the SRG, so please scrawl all over that. And once again, you can find the soundwalk at our bit.ly link, bit.ly/disband SRG. I'm going to be putting those up later. Love and solidarity. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you for my brother Big Mike about the soundwalk. So that's it. I'd like to thank again everybody for coming out. I'd like to give a special shout out, even though I don't see her right now. Oh, there she is. To all the senior organizers from New York Civil Liberties Union who put this together, Isabel Leva and her comrade. Thank you so much. So that's it again. My name is John McFarland. Thank you for having me at UMC today. And everybody take care. And